The last several decades were about globalization,
Yeah.
about the world being one common trading bloc. Now we're seeing more and more trade barriers being created, especially given what President Trump is doing in the United States and the ripple effect this has on the global trade order. Given that, and now that you're not in power, you can actually look at it from a technocratic lens. What's your sense of how countries like India should be navigating the turbulence being caused by the kind of tariffs that the United States is throwing?
Yeah. No, look, it's an excellent point. I think I'd start by saying the old global order, the globalization that I grew up with, that came into place after the fall of the Berlin Wall, I think that is gone, right? And I don't think it's coming back. Now, we're not quite clear what's going to replace it, but a couple of themes are clear. One is that there's going to be more multipolarity in the world, and India is an example of that. And I think the second is countries everywhere are focused much more on domestic capabilities. And the reason for that is twofold, and I think this is instructive not just for India, but for countries around the world. The first is COVID. COVID, although it was, of course, first and foremost a health crisis, was also an enormous geopolitical event because every country suddenly realized the fragility of their supply chains. I'll give you an example. We in the UK at the beginning were very short of PPE, gowns, gloves, masks, and it got to the point where the entire country was watching to see if a flight, I think it was taking off from Turkey to come to the UK, was going to land in time, with the amount of PPE we needed so our NHS could keep going that week. That was where it got to. So because of that, every country in Europe now has a cabinet-level committee that's focused on the resilience of supply chains and domestic capabilities. I think that's the first reason, Rahul. Things have changed, and every country needs to think like that. And I think the second is China, right? And China, it's clear, doesn't play by the same rules that many of the rest of us were playing by, right? They don't view trade purely as an economic function, and it has meant that countries have to think about security, IP theft, alongside trading relationships. And that's why we went through a process in the UK, as did many other countries, of taking out Huawei equipment or banning it for future use and passing new national security acts, which mean that in sensitive sectors of our economy, we're a little bit more careful about who's investing, what are they doing, what technology is leaving our country. And as I said, those national security acts are new. Those cabinet committees focused on domestic resilience are new. They're not going away, and that's why I think the old global order, trading-wise, is not going to come back in the same form.